Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Barely Filtered. I have two of my favorite guests. These guys have been on Barely Filtered before, but I missed them so much. I asked if they would come back down from Santa Barbara, and they agreed to it. So I'm so excited. I have Vanessa here, who is a sex expert, and I have her husband, Xander, who is a regular guy. I love that description of the two of you because, like, it's just so, like, are you okay with just being called a regular? I'm sure there's a little more to you than just being a regular guy, but
regular dude is the official title. Actually.
Yeah, I started out as a regular dude. I think now I'm a regular dude that also has some sex expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have to. And I love that, like, you're wearing like a brown jacket and she's in like the bright blue poppy. You guys are really dressing for your names. Okay, so let's start with, what does it mean to be a sex expert? When can you call yourself that?
So I'm a licensed psychotherapist specializing in sex therapy. I always knew that I wanted to get into the realm of sex because it was so fascinating and interesting to me. But there's actually not a defined career path for how to do it because there are so few of us out there. Mm-hmm. So I decided I wanted to have that experience of being a psychotherapist, have that foundation. So I went to grad school and got licensed in that.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So psychotherapy, and then you kind of like niched in sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Specialized in, I actually did my undergraduate degree in human sexuality.
Oh, so, I didn't know that was an option. I might have chosen that too, had I known.
At the time, I went to one of 3 schools in the country that had an undergraduate program in it. So.
Oh my God, amazing. And tell me, how long have you guys been married for?
This year will
13 years.
It'll be 14 years this year and together for 17.
14 years. Okay, wow. And I have so many questions. So my listeners know that I was with my ex-husband for 8 years. We were married for like less than 3. We had 2 kids together. And, since I've been now in the dating world, I've been talking to a lot of experts, like dating coaches and even like sex experts. And I feel like there's so many different perspectives on like the rules of how to start having sex, how to keep sex alive. And it's pretty confusing for somebody who's just like in the dating world. And I think it's confusing also for people who have been in relationships for a long time, because do you think there are actual right ways to start having sex and continue having sex?
I don't. I know there are so many rules about what we're supposed to do and not do, but I think everybody's so unique and every situation is so unique that I think we're much better suited by tuning into ourselves and figuring out what feels good for me, what feels right for me. Who cares what somebody else thinks? It's really about what your experience is.
Right. I think that's so hard. I can only speak from a woman's perspective, but I think for me, a lot of my sex life has been trying to make someone else feel good in order to kind of manipulate them into liking me more.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Do you feel like is that a natural thing for women, or like a societal construct where we feel like sex is really for the man and we do it so that we can keep them on a short leash?
Oh, we get so much crappy socialization from the time we're so young about all the rules, the things that we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And it's odd because we also don't talk about sex very openly, but somehow we absorb all of these things that we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And so, I think that as women, we really have been socialized to be caretakers and caregivers and focus more on the other person's experience than our own. So I can say for myself, like, even I knew from a young age that I wanted to get into the field of sex therapy and help people talk about sex more openly and not feel embarrassed about it. But even me, like once I started having sex with partners, I fell into a lot of those same patterns of it's all about him. I want to make myself seem like I'm so easy to please. I'm so easy to connect with. The vibes are so good between the two of us. Like we're connecting so well. And even in the moment itself, I was so much more focused on my partner's experience. Are they having a good time? Am I performing for them in the appropriate way? I was so disconnected from my own body. And it took a really long time for me to even understand what it was like to be in my own skin during sex and to understand what felt good for me. What did I want to do? It's just really, really tricky when you grow up.
I mean, I've for sure had that exact experience. I think a lot of women have. Xander, is that your experience, or what's it like from a male's perspective?
That's a good question, but I totally agree with Vanessa that I think it comes down to what feels important to you. How you want to have sex is, kind of just in a way, one of your core values. So, what feels important to me, is it important that I wait some amount of time, wait until I feel like we have some level of connection, wait until we feel like we're in love? Or is it that I can't really tell if I'm in love with someone if I am not connecting sexually with them? But I think that the key is to be able to be comfortable discussing what that value is for you early on. Where I think that we get into trouble is when, we have some sort of value deep down, but then we end up compromising on it early on. And then kind of going down that road of, oh, okay, well, I ended up doing this because it seemed like it's what they wanted. And so I'm trying to like put my best foot forward and like give him a good experience. You're setting yourself up for later on then having like the seeds of resentment, right? Because it's like, it was like, oh, this isn't really what I wanted. And I'm doing this. I did this for you, but now, so then as soon as something doesn't feel right to you, or maybe you're not getting what you need out of it, all of a sudden in your mind, it's like, oh, well, I bent over backwards for you, or, I did.
Literally.
Yeah. Literally. And so I think so many relationships, even relationships that are really successful in marriages that are super successful and people have been together for a long time, have that experience early on where one partner, does things or agrees to things that if it were up to them and had they been comfortable talking about it early on, they may not have done that. And that can create a rift or a wedge that ends up rearing its head much later on.
Right. Totally. I also think it's hard to know what our sex values are. I know for me, at least, it's like I went through kind of this, I don't know, I guess you call it a slutty phase, although I think that word is not PC anymore. But like in high school, and then kind of, got ashamed about it. People talk, that sort of thing. And then, I ended up finding my partner, my ex-husband. And I really don't think it was until like we were divorced and I was dating other people that I started to, it started to click for me what I want from sex. Like, is there a way for a woman or a man to find out what their sexual values are without having to go through so much, experimentation and turmoil?
I wish there was. I think a lot of it does have to do with just trying things out and having experiences. But a lot of it is just like we never learned how to tune into ourselves and ask ourselves those questions. So I think recognizing that, being gentle on ourselves, and starting to get curious about, what do I think would feel good for me here? What are my options here? What if I kind of lay out each of them and I imagine what each one would look like? What would that feel like? But a lot of it does come down to really trying things and having those experiences. And we learn so much from like, I don't think that felt so good for me. I don't want to try that again next time. Or, oh, I'm surprised by how much I liked that.
Yeah.
But I do think like a good starting point for a lot of people is to think about what 3 words would you use to describe your ideal sex life? That's a great question to start with, because so many of us, we want to have a great sex life, but we've never taken the time to think about what does that actually mean? What does good mean to me? Like your version of good is probably really different from mine. It's probably different from Xander's. So just taking that time to like feel into it. And that's a great first step of starting to figure out like, what is important to me when it comes to sex?
Yeah, you can also think about it like what makes sex worth having for me. And like I know for me, for example, like, getting back to sort of like sexual values, and of course, this is easy for me to say, like hindsight's 2020. It's easy looking back, like Vanessa and I have been together for a very long time. Like for me, one of the things that I've learned is that for me, feeling emotionally connected to a person is very important. For me to feel comfortable having sex. And when I look back at many of my sexual experiences that were not in long-term relationships, I didn't come away feeling particularly good about them. And I didn't know why at the time. Now I can look back and be like, oh, well, obviously, like, if Vanessa and I aren't feeling super connected, I'm not feeling super open to having sex. Like I want a baseline level of connection. And so looking back, it's like, okay, well, obviously, the sort of like one night stand situations, I didn't come away feeling very good, or those were anxiety provoking because I didn't feel very connected to that person. So if I were single now, I would absolutely take that knowledge and be like, like I'm not open to having sex on the first date right after I've met someone. Like I want to get to know them. And Yeah, and I would want to find a way to be able to describe that, not in a like, we can't do this
Right.
sort of way, but like, hey, this is something that's really important to me. Like I would, it's important for me to get to know you before we start, kind of like getting into that element of things.
I love hearing that from a man because I feel like it sounds like such a female thing. I've talked to attachment style therapists who have said to me before, like, you really should not have sex right off the bat because when you have sex, a woman releases what's the breast milk oxytocin, and that creates an attachment for her. But a man doesn't release oxytocin and those like attachment hormones in the same way. He releases those through shared struggle and like figuring things out together. So he's like, an escape room would be like a really good date to have with a man because that's how they connect. And in my experience too, like I've had my ex-husband, we had sex on the first night we were together for 8 years. The guy that I'm with most recently, same kind of situation. But I've also had experiences where I've waited 3 weeks and then I will have sex with the guy and I totally feel like that energetic retreat from him in a way where I felt like he kind of pulled back and then I'm over here on YouTube like, did I ruin it? How do I get that back? Like, do you feel that men have that post-nut clarity sometimes? Have you heard of that? Where I asked my brother-in-law, I was like, why do I feel like this guy pulled away from me after we had sex? Is it me? And he's like, well, it's post-nut clarity. Like once they come, they they either like you or they don't. Is that a thing?
We don't have any scientific research behind post-nut clarity that I know of. Be a great research project for somebody. But see, in those kinds of situations, I think more about your experience of it. So let's look at the guy, the 3-week one. Forget about what he did. When you had sex with him, how did you feel after having sex with him?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I knew from the first time we made out, it was it just wasn't there. The way he kissed was not the way I liked to be kissed. Our sex was not I felt like he did not know what he was doing, oral sex. And it made me feel like, wow, has no girl given you instructions on this before? And then when we had sex, he actually went soft, 5 minutes in. And I'm like, I don't know if all women feel this way, but I took it personally. Yeah. And I think maybe he also felt a little embarrassed by it. And I wasn't sure if he didn't like me and that's why it happened. Or because that happened, he was embarrassed and that's why he pulled back. But ultimately, I was so concerned about getting him back to like me because on paper he had all these things that I thought would be great for me in my life that I didn't even actually stop to think was this sex good for me?
Yeah.
Which in retrospect, no, it wasn't. And why didn't I care if it was good for me?
Yes. Okay. So there's that. Let's also even pull it back a step further. So let's imagine we could go back to the exact moment where you decided to have sex with him. And we don't know how the sex is going to go yet. How do you feel in that moment? Did you feel good about the decision that you made?
So it actually wasn't 3 weeks in. It was almost 2 months in. And I have this dating coach who was like, you may not have sex unless there's commitment. And because commitment is ruled by the man and sex is ruled by the woman. And you don't give up the sex until you get what you want first. And so when I did have sex with him, I did it because I was trying to force a connection that I felt like wasn't really there yet. And so afterwards, I felt so crappy that I had broken the rule. And I thought maybe if I had waited longer or gotten the commitment from him first, then I would have felt better about it. So there was just so much guilt wrapped up in it. It was so heady.
So those are the things that I would pay attention to more. It's your thought process, your decision around it. Because who cares what he did? I think we get so fixated on how the other person responds and we use that to kind of rewrite history and help us decide did I make the right decision or the wrong decision? But he's not who matters. You're who matters.
Right.
You're the one who wants to get to know yourself better, get to understand what feels good and not good and right and not right for you. So we have to take him out of it. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that initial decision, you are recognizing now, like, yeah, I was trying to force something. I was trying to push it along.
For sure.
So that's a great lesson for you to, I don't know what's going to happen with this current guy, hopefully good. But, if you're dating in the future, that's a great lesson. Like, I know I have the tendency to try to push things along. So let me keep an eye out for that and watch out for that. And then the second part of it is also really fascinating too. Like, here, you went and had sex with him. It was not a great experience for you. And I do want to normalize, it's not always great the first time.
Yeah, okay.
But it sounds like for you, it was like, that wasn't even worth a redo.
And it sounds like you had some before sex, like with kissing even, you were sort of picking up on some misalignments in energy.
Totally.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I think that's an important aspect of it too. Is like you had this experience with him and you realized, I didn't like that. It didn't feel good for me. But then you started focusing more on like, does he like me? Does he not like me? Rather than on the, the more central, important truth of, I don't think that's somebody I wanted to have sex with again.
Totally. Is there something that people should look out for in the beginning stages of dating or a relationship that would save them some time? Because I feel like that's happened to me before where I'm just kind of like I got to go on more dates and see if maybe the attraction will build. There was one guy who I literally was going on dates with for like 2 months, and I would ask my sisters, I'm like, do you guys ever kind of like recoil when like your guy touches your leg, or like you just kind of shudder because like you're just like, and they're like, Aurora, no, like that's not a good sign. I don't think you're attracted to him. But like, I don't know, is there something that we should be looking for that to let us know that like this is somebody that I want to be touched by forever?
It sounds to me like your body is actually telling you so much more than you're giving it credit for. Like you said, we kissed him and I could tell right from the beginning, there was just something about that physical experience. Your body was telling you right away, like, no, this is not the right person.
Yeah.
And same thing with the recoiling. Your body is telling you, ooh, I don't want that person touching me.
100%.
So I know a lot of us have the tendency, like we love to analyze things and pick it apart and look at all the little details.
I'm the queen.
Yeah. And by the way, I do think that guy, I think it's more likely that he disappeared because he was embarrassed rather than not liking you. But I know we all have this tendency to want to like pick apart every little detail in our head. But to me, it sounds like paying more attention to your body might be the key for you.
And I think that in that type of situation of like, okay, I'm going on a couple of dates with someone, I can't tell if I have the physical attraction yet. I think that absolutely you can build physical attraction over time as you continue to get to know someone and you get excited about who they are. But I do think that, like Vanessa was saying, it's when you start getting that actual physical feedback, like, okay, because it's one thing to be like, okay, I'll go on a couple dates with this person and see if I start to become attracted to them. It's another thing if it's like you're going on a couple of dates and then you're starting to have some physical touch and you're getting that actual feedback from yourself of like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Because it's like if you're trying to force physical connection and you're finding yourself not physically attracted, then I think at that point, like you're going to really struggle to actually build a physical attraction when you're not enjoying the physical connection that you're having.
Totally. And the worst part of that whole situation too is I ended up ending things with him because of how he was so distant after the sex. And I felt like I'd given this thing up and he had kind of like, left me high and dry emotionally after that. But then he was like, yeah, I'm really glad that you ended things because like, to be honest, like I wasn't feeling, I don't feel like there's a physical connection between us, which is like so accurate and true. But I was so offended that he said that, even though it's like, yeah, that's actually my experience as well. But like, I don't want to hear like you're supposed to like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just super offensive. But it's so interesting because, I feel like everybody's so different. And I am somebody who like, if I like somebody, I think sex right away is like, it seems to be what's worked for me, like in relationships that have lasted.
Yeah. And that's a great piece of awareness to have about yourself. Right. And so if again, it kind of goes back to your body, like your body's like, I can feel things out. Let me like get the vibe. So if that feels good for you, then that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah.
It sounds like your body has a lot of intuition around what's right and what's not right. So why not lean into that more? So that's not to say, oh, I should have sex immediately with someone, but it's like, oh, if I'm feeling excited about it, that's probably a great sign.
A good sign.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to lean into our body, listen to our body more for sure. Okay, so let's talk about, I feel like I talk about dating a lot because that's like my life, but I know a lot of my listeners have been in relationships, maybe the relationships for a long time. Let's talk about like, how do you tell somebody that like their oral sex game is complete shit and you need them to step it up, or, you know?
Oh yeah, I wanted to go back to that story that like has nobody told him. One of the things that happens because we are socialized so much to take care of other people is that so many of us women fake it. Like I faked so many orgasms for so many years.
So nice that we can do that. I mean, I was grateful for that.
It's a little harder for us to do that.
Yeah.
But it is increasing though.
It is possible.
It's on the rise.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Could be a good actor.
But what happens for men or people who are sleeping with women is that they get the idea that, oh, what I did worked. And so they go on to the next partner and they do the exact same thing. They're getting this positive feedback.
Oh my God, we're enabling bad sex for each other.
I know.
Ladies, we need to step it up and tell this guy that you hooked up with that he was shit in bed so that the next girl can at least find some improvement.
At least don't fake it. If you have a hard time not faking for yourself, which I've been there, I totally get it. At least think about the ladies who are coming after you and try to spare them.
Or even throwing guys a bone, even if there was someone that's not faking it. Like the reality with everybody, but especially let's just talk about women here. The reality is there's a lot of different techniques, and different women are going to react different ways to different types of technique or pressure or speed. And so it could be that he was with someone that he did something and it was wildly successful for them. And that's exactly what he did to you, thinking, oh, great, I cracked the code. This is how you make her come, right?
Right.
And he does that to you and it's not great for you. That's also totally normal.
Yeah.
And so I think that, men really take a lot of pride in like wanting to figure out how to be good in bed.
Yeah.
And so I think that men can really
Sometimes
latch on.
detriment.
Yeah, to their detriment, can latch on to, oh yeah, I figured it out. I do this and then that and then that. And it worked, it's worked for the last couple of people. So therefore, because it worked for them, it's going to work for this other person. And the reality is just like, we got to look at each sexual experience as almost like a wiping the slate. We can bring in our experience, but we can't bring in like our preconception about, oh, this is what makes sex good. Because it's going to be different for every relationship.
Yeah, I think of being good in bed kind of like a chef. So you can have chefs that have different levels of skill, but even the best chef could prepare a meal and there's going to be someone who says, I don't really like their food, right? So it's not that there's this, universally good in bed. Like I do this one combination of techniques.
Yeah, watch my moves.
And like it works for every single person magically. Like we can increase our skill, but we also have to get to know the person that we're cooking for or going down on.
Right.
And so one of the issues that comes up for us women is we don't know how to tune into our bodies. We don't really know what we want. So many of us have never even explored our own bodies, so we don't know what brings us pleasure. And we feel too embarrassed and self-conscious to tell our partner, give them any sort of feedback. But we are really robbing ourselves of the opportunity to have more pleasurable experiences.
Yeah.
So I try not to think of it as giving directions to your partner, because I couldn't even do that. I couldn't write down a list for you of here's exactly what to do to make me come from oral.
Right.
But instead trying to focus more on giving like really gentle feedback in the moment, like try a little bit harder, try a little softer. Can you use your hand on me? Looking at it more as like an experimentation rather than giving instructions.
Right. Just communication. Like we're back to the whole, like you got to communicate in your relationship. And I have a question for you guys because you've been together for so long, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, but how do you maintain sexual desire for each other? I just know in my relationship, my marriage got to a point where I literally was having sex with him because I wanted him to be nice to me. And I knew that like if I had sex with him, then that would give me like a good mood from him for at least 24 hours. And then we found ourselves in this cycle of him feeling like I never really wanted it and me feeling kind of guilt tripped. And once that tone is set, it's so hard to get out of it. Like, why does that happen and how do we avoid it?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're speaking about that because that is a really common dynamic that comes up for so many women. I was actually just talking to a girlfriend of mine who was saying the same thing. She's like, I feel like I like kind of hit the clock, once we have sex, and then I get this certain amount of time before things start to go wrong again. And it's really important for us to recognize like sex cannot be used in that way. Like we can't manipulate sex to help us.
It's not currency.
Yeah, exactly. It's not currency.
You can, but you can't do that and also get significant enjoyment out of it. I think that's the thing. Exactly. Is like those are sort of two ends of the scale. Yeah. You can't have both of them.
Right.
Yeah. So your enjoyment has to matter as much as his enjoyment matters too. When we have sex for our partner, it's just a one-way ticket to resentment, on our part and of course on their part too. So there's so many dynamics that get wrapped up in it. There's also the like how he initiates sex, how he reacted if you ever turned him down. Like if he got upset with you, angry, sullen, withdrawn, that ends up sending you the message that it's not okay to say no to sex. Right. Which if we feel like we can't say no to something, we can't enthusiastically and excitedly say yes to it either. Right. It starts to feel like this trap that you're sucked in. Totally. And it makes sex feel like there's nothing in it for you. It's just something you're doing for your partner, giving to your partner.
Yes.
And that's not what it's supposed to be.
It's not at all. And I feel like it's such a tough thing if you're in a marriage because it's like, you're not going to be like, okay, well, this tone has been set. Now we have to get divorced because I don't know how to fix this. How would you suggest getting back to a place where it is mutually enjoyable?
Yeah, I mean, I would start in your case, what you're describing, like I would start with how he's handling you saying no. That, as a therapist, I'm like, I just have to jump right in there. But in terms of like the question of how do we get back to it being like a mutually enjoyable experience, one thing that I think is really important for women to recognize is that most men, of course, there are a few bad apples out there, but most men genuinely want you to have a good experience. Yeah. It makes them feel good to know that you are feeling good. They don't like it when you're faking.
Yeah, most men can pick up on that. We give men a lot of shit for not being very perceptive or not being able to read the room. But when it comes to sex, men are shockingly perceptible around, did she really want that? Is she just like, is this pity sex? Is she saying yes because I asked, not because she's very excited about it? The problem is men are not very skillful at bringing that up and talking about it and saying, hey, I'm noticing this. This doesn't feel very good for me. What can we do to try to make this better? So the problem is most men will just go ahead and do it anyway. Because they're like, oh, well, all right, I guess she's offering it to me, so let's just do it. But most men, if you actually ask them about it, will be like, oh yeah, no, for the last 3 years, I know that my wife hasn't really wanted to have sex with me, but we do it anyway.
Yeah, that's so sad. We don't give you guys enough credit.
Yeah, they genuinely do. Like they want you to have a good experience. They feel good giving to you. So a lot of it for us women is allowing ourselves to take in that gift and realize like my partner genuinely wants me to have a good experience. So can we allow ourselves to have a good experience? And a lot of that is like allowing ourselves to take up time. So many women will tell me like, oh, well, he'll start doing something to me, but then I feel like it's been forever. And so I tell him, let's just move on.
I know, like you feel bad that like, oh, they're still working down there. It's like,
I ask women all the time, like, how much time, honestly, do you think you give yourself? And they're like a minute, maybe two. Like nobody's going to have an orgasm or even feel that much pleasure in 1 minute.
Right.
So it's allowing ourselves to take up that time. Stop saying like, okay, it's all right, we can move on ahead.
Right.
Especially because the reality, if we're talking about male-female relationships, is that intercourse is not the most pleasurable activity for our bodies. We're just not hardwired to feel very much sensation from penetration alone. So 85% of women can't have orgasms just from penetration alone. A lot of women will say like, it feels intimate and nice and connecting, but like from a pleasure standpoint, it's not that exciting. Yeah. So allowing ourselves to like take up that time and have more stimulation of the parts of our bodies that are actually sensitive and meant to feel pleasure.
Right.
Clitoris.
Like there has to be clitoral stimulation for most women in order to orgasm. Yeah. So Elisa Vitti came on my podcast, and one of the things she was saying is that one of the best things you can do for your hormone health is to have sex, but it's not the orgasm. It's all of the hormones that are flushing your body when you're in that passion between two people, which I don't think people know that. Like, I think everybody puts so much emphasis on the orgasm instead of really trying to like enjoy what's happening. And I don't know if it's because, you know, people are busy or we're tired or...
We're all going for the frickin' quickies these days.
We're doing the quickies. So tell me this then.
Let's take a little more time. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. An orgasm is amazing. I love having a good orgasm.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's just a few seconds, typically at the end of an experience. And you could be experiencing all this pleasure and joy and connection for way longer than that. So like, yeah, let's have orgasms. And especially the women who are faking them and not having them. Let's have the orgasms, but let's also remember to enjoy ourselves along the way.
Well, also the orgasms tend to be better the more we have been enjoying ourselves along the way. Like if we have a quickie, I almost certainly am not going to have a really big orgasm.
Really?
But, you know, the best ones for me are generally when we've been taking our time.
So, okay, talking about taking time, what are your thoughts on scheduling sex versus spontaneous sex? And do you think one is better than the other?
We're really big fans of scheduling sex, but we look at it in a different way. So we actually think the problem is not that now you're in this long-term relationship and you have to schedule sex because your sex life is so boring and you're scheduling it the same way you schedule dentist appointments. We think actually the problem is that you stopped scheduling sex in the first place. So if you think back to those early stages of dating, which everybody loves to think back to, like, oh, I miss how it was at the beginning.
It was so spontaneous.
I miss when your legs weren't hairy.
Yeah. If you really think about it, though, what's happening when we're dating somebody? We are scheduling dates.
Yeah.
You're agreeing like, okay, Friday, we're going out to dinner at 7:00. And once
regardless of how how hard of a day I've had or whatever, like, you know, usually you're not canceling unless like you're sick or something, right?
And we look at that as such a good thing. Like
Right.
my life is really busy, his life is really busy, but he's willing to carve out Friday night for me.
And
right?
the buildup literally starts when you schedule that. So now you're having like a week of like this sort of foreplay leading up to this date.
Exactly. So I think if people recognize like you've been scheduling from the very beginning, it really
because
helps
once you start having sex, then there's a general one-for-one understanding when we schedule a date. We're going to have sex sometime.
Yeah, hopefully both people are on the same page there.
And so, you are effectively scheduling sex there. You just aren't putting it in those, you're not making that connection in your head. You're not thinking, it's not an explicit, hey, let's schedule sex for Friday night at 8:00. You're saying, let's schedule a date night. But you are effectively scheduling intimacy. You are having some emotional intimacy, and then you're almost certainly having some physical intimacy. So can we think about scheduling sex in a different way instead thinking of it as we're scheduling intimacy?
Right. I love the reframing of that too, because, you know, more dopamine is released in the planning of something.
The anticipation
of like a vacation or whatever. So when you think about it that way, now this, like, your sex life is more than just that, 20 minutes or whatever when you're actually having intercourse.
Yeah. So of course, like if we schedule it, you can schedule it in a way that feels terrible. Like, okay, let me get out our calendar.
Yeah.
All right, Thursday, maybe 8:35 to 8:45. We could do that. All right, let's
make sure you finish at that time because I have to go whatever.
Yeah, of course, if you do it like that, that's going to feel awful. But instead, if you think about it as like planning for intimacy, carving the time out in the same sort of way that you looked at it so positively in the past, can we look at it positively again? Or this recognition of our lives are super full. We have so much going on. If we're not intentional about how we're spending our time, like we're not going to spend that time together. So let's be intentional. Let's say, I love you. I care about you. I want to make sure time for us is prioritized over all the other million things that are battling for our attention.
And I think another important part of that, especially for people that are in longer term relationships or maybe have kids, is not even thinking about, okay, we are scheduling intimacy for X time tonight, but it's like thinking through, okay, in order for us to show up and have intimacy that feels good for both of us, what else do we need to each make sure we're supporting each other with during the day? Okay, like does that mean we got to make sure that, all the kids' lunches are prepped and they're put to bed and the kitchen is clean before we both feel like, okay, now we can really like set aside the to-do lists and stuff? Because I think the other mistake is, once we got kids and a whole household and all that stuff into the equation, is we think, okay, well, I'm just focused on, all right, at this time we're doing intimacy. without thinking about, okay, have we set ourselves up for success in the first place? Have we, done all the things that we know are going to make the other most open to intimacy?
Right. So it's prioritizing it, which means you probably just shouldn't have kids because that's going to be a tough one. Okay. So let's talk about frequency. How often should couples be having sex in order to maintain closeness?
This is such a tough question to answer, and it's the number one question that we get asked too. So I truly believe that there is no magic number, and I know that's such an unsatisfying answer.
I don't like
People want to know.
There has to be like a too long though, right?
So, okay, we do. What I will say, I really believe we are all so unique. Our relationships are all so unique. I think that it's much more important for couples to focus on making the sex enjoyable. If we focus more on what makes sex worth having, I think a frequency naturally drops into place. But I do understand, like, people always have that curiosity. So I'll say a couple of things. If you are asking yourself, should we be having more sex? The answer is probably yes.
Okay.
And I do think, we need to be intentional to make that effort to have sex with each other. Sex is really important.
Yeah.
It's not just this physical act. It's not just putting body parts in body parts. It's a way that we connect, that we experience closeness and intimacy. So people never ask like, oh, do we need to have dates? Do we need to schedule quality time to be with each other? Do we need to say nice things to each other? It's like we accept. Like, no, that's an important part of our relationship. Yeah. We need to accept the same with sex. And I'll also give you some research here. So we did a poll, and I think about 75,000 people have responded to it. Wow. So we asked people, how often are you having sex? And we asked them for their satisfaction with their sex life too. So 75% of the respondents fell into 3 different buckets. And it was even like 25, 25, 25. So those 3 buckets were 2 to 3 times a month, once a week, and 2 to 3 times a week.
Oh. So that's like the range.
Yeah.
Was there data on how happy all these people were?
It was the same.
Oh, that was the same satisfaction level?
Yeah, we didn't see increased satisfaction with that increased frequency.
Interesting. So it really is quality over quantity. Okay, so how often do you guys have sex?
That is actually the one question that we won't answer.
Yeah. What? But you're so open about everything.
But honestly, it varies. It varies.
It varies.
Oh, I love that you guys have a secret.
We do. Yeah, we were very intentional about that when we were like, if we say our frequency, then people are going to naturally think like that's the right frequency.
That's the right one. Okay,
that's what we should be aiming for. And it's like, I really don't think that there is. But what I will say is like we make a lot of effort with our sex life. We really think about it. We talk about it. We carve time out for it. We work on creating desire, not just waiting to feel that desire spontaneously out of nowhere. And of course, we work on making sex something that's worth having for both of us. So we have a lot of sex. And we're really happy with it.
Yeah.
You
just said it. I was going to say, speaking for myself, I'm happier with our sex life. I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Oh,
with our sex
really?
life
Wow. I love to hear that from a couple that's been together for 14 years because you feel like all the stories that you hear is just like, oh, it's not fun. It's not spontaneous anymore. And I get this question a lot from people who are like, my husband or my partner watches a lot of porn. He masturbates a lot. I feel like a little insulted by that. Yeah. What do you think about that?
So I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with being turned on by watching other people have sex. But I do think that there is a lot wrong with how people are consuming porn these days. And we definitely are seeing that same pattern as well, that a lot of people are choosing to engage with porn instead of with their living, breathing human partner. So our general recommendations here are that if you're feeling the desire to watch porn and masturbate, that you initiate some sort of intimacy with your partner first. So you're prioritizing your partner over that. If your partner's not interested in being intimate, then totally fair game to go watch. Of course, every couple is going to have like their own different guidelines about what feels right in their relationship. But I think if we at least prioritize our partner, that can go a long way.
Okay. All right. I think that makes sense. I mean, everybody's so different. I think there was a girl also who sent me a voice note. I don't know if I can ask her for permission to play it. Maybe I'll ask her, we can play it after. But for now, I'll just summarize what she said. And this was a woman that she started dating a guy and they were having a lot of sex right off the bat. It was great. They, got kind of comfortable with each other. And she feels like he's not initiating as much as he was, and his desire for sex has kind of dwindled, and she's feeling very offended by that. Do you think that's a bad sign, or?
I'd be curious to ask if she's initiating, because we do see a lot in male-female relationships. And I went through this as well, too. Like, I really struggled to initiate. I felt like that's the guy's job.
Right.
I'm not supposed to. It's not sexy as a woman to initiate. Right. I'm supposed to let him be in charge of it. And so a lot of us get into these patterns where we just want our partner to.
Right. And I don't know if I could recover if he turned me down.
Yeah. But the reality is, like, men want to feel wanted, too. I mean, maybe you can speak to that, of what it feels like to have that pressure to be the one person initiating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that ultimately it is not fair. It doesn't have to be 50-50 at all. Whatever makes sense in your relationship, whatever feels good to you. But yes, ultimately, I think everybody wants to feel wanted. But I think that we can't have sex be the ultimate like test of validation for us. Because, if it turns into that, then it's like, oh, okay, well, then in theory, then all I would need to do to show my partner that I want them, the more I initiate, the more I want them, and the more they're validated. And like, there has to be other ways,
right,
to receive validation, and there also has to be other ways that we, validate ourselves and know our own worth, I think. So yeah, I think that ultimately it's so important for both people to be able to do it, because like, it can feel very lonely when you're the only one doing it. I think that at first it can be exciting, because it's like, oh yeah, let me show her how manly I am.
Yeah.
Let me prove to her like what I can do. But then you start to wonder, does my partner really want me? Does my partner really want sex? Does my partner really like sex? So we were kind of talking earlier about how guys are pretty perceptive of like, is she really saying yes because she's excited, or is she saying yes because she thinks she has to?
Right. And you guys really do care.
Yeah. And you start, I think we talk to so many men, we hear from so many men that are asking themselves those questions. Like, does my partner really want sex themselves? And so, yeah, like if you are having sex that, where sex is more of a tool rather than something for you, then of course your partner is going to be asking those questions.
Yeah. What do you think about lazy sex? Do you feel like, I don't know. I just feel like giving head feels like a lot more work than a man giving oral to a woman. I mean, I just feel like it, like, do you agree with that?
I don't agree, but I want to hear your reasoning.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the actual just action of like giving head, I feel like is a little, I don't know, maybe it's because I think I'm really easy to please orally. So like, I'm like a quick, and I love it, and it's quick, and I think they feel satisfied that like they were able to like, make me happy. But I guess my real question is like, do you think there needs to be balance in oral sex, that you guys should be both mutually doing it like sort of the same amount?
I think when we get into scorekeeping in anything in relationships, that can be really tricky. So I wouldn't want anybody with a little like, their little tally system in their notebook. Like, he gave it to me 3 times in the last month. But in general, as long as both people enjoy oral sex, which not everyone does.
Right.
I actually personally, it's not the most enjoyable sensation for me.
How funny.
Yeah, and a lot of women feel like something is wrong with them or broken with them if they don't like it. But it's just kind of, our bodies are all different. For me, somebody's using their hands on me, it feels so much more targeted and specific. Whereas with the mouth, the actual sensation is just like,
oh, I'm the exact opposite. And I worry about the fingernails and the dirt. It just feels like a pap smear to me. I don't know.
See, we're all different.
Yeah, I mean, that's getting back to what I was saying like early on of like every woman, every person is so different in what they want. But, I mean, like women's bodies especially, between the clitoris and the vagina, like what type, there's a lot of combinations of options for types of stimulation. And, Vanessa saying like she loves something totally opposite and different from you. And so, like if there was, someone, you guys were both dating and you slept with the same person, they would have like,
This podcast just got real messy.
Yeah. Wait, so is that you, Xander? Is this what's happening here? Is this an invitation?
But like, they would come away being like, oh my God, like I did the thing that I thought worked and it didn't work.
It didn't work.
But yeah, I mean, going back to your original question, like I do think that we should be giving to each other like equally, roughly equally.
Okay, I'm going to get pretty vulnerable here because this is something that actually has been on my mind that I've only brought up to a few people. Now I'm just going to tell, millions of people right now. Hopefully millions will listen to this episode. But so I had 2 kids. I know you guys don't have children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I birthed, my first baby was a giant ass baby. Like he had a big old head. Then my second baby was a C-section, but I had to like labor her first. And so I know in my mind, they stitched me up and everything and I work out a lot and I'm fit. But I'm like, I wonder sometimes, especially with my new partner who like the girls he's dated before are like little itty bitty girl. Like I'm tall. I'm like, I wonder, like, does it matter? Do men prefer to have sex with women who have like a virgin vagina in terms of like have never had kids or like a smaller body where their vagina is probably smaller? But I think smaller women have smaller vaginas, right? Is that how it works?
Not necessarily. No, I really appreciate you asking this question because this is something that so many of us women worry about. Like we grow up being so socialized around like the tightness of our vaginas that matters so much. But what's really interesting to think about is we've never seen it the opposite way. Like why don't men get pressure around that? Why aren't we like more fixated on men's, penises? Like there's this amazing meme that I saw that has like pictures of different sausages and they're like skinny ones.
Yeah.
And so there's a super skinny one or there's a thick one and it's like, this is the penis of a virgin whose like penis has never been crushed by a vagina before. Okay. And then the little one was like, this is the penis of a man who's had sex with lots of partners and his penis is tiny and crushed.
Oh my God,
like,
I've never heard of that.
It sounds ridiculous to think of it that way.
But vaginas really do stretch though. I don't think penises shrink.
But vaginas do stretch, but they come back as well. Like they are naturally like it has really stretchy, muscles and fibers and all of that. But I just think it's important to recognize like the socialization around it. Men don't get that same amount of pressure that women do. So the reality of like how our body parts work together is like everybody's bodies are going to fit together in different ways. And that's not anybody's fault. It's just how 2 different bodies work together. But the vagina is incredibly elastic. It is, creates a ton of sensation. Most men really can't tell the difference between like the ways that different vaginas feel. Like your penis is sensitive, but it's not like that sensitive.
Like
it could also be too tight.
Too tight? Too tight could be,
I mean, we hear from a lot of men that struggle to last for very long. Because
it's too tight.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of women. This is a crazy statistic. 30% of women experienced pain the last time they had intercourse. That's not like ever. That's the last time they had intercourse, which is wild. So there are a lot of women who might have like pelvic floor issues, might have trauma from childbirth. It's causing pain. But a lot of women, there actually is too much tension in the vaginal canal. And we're so fixated on like making ourselves as tight as possible that actually a lot of women are creating even more issues for themselves.
Interesting.
So it's natural to wonder about that. But I think it's so important for us to recognize like we've been socialized to believe that the tightness of our vagina is so important in this, really crappy way. And the reality is like, fine. You're going to be just fine. If you do have any issues, definitely like, you can always check in with a pelvic floor physical therapist. Right. If there's pain or discomfort or things just really don't feel right, like we're huge advocates of pelvic floor physical therapy. But for the vast majority of people, it's like,
you're fine.
Also, I think that the vast majority of straight men, I know, Vanessa had said before, there's always a couple bad apples. I think the vast majority of straight men have been fantasizing about vulvas since about age 13 and just really love vulvas.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not about a certain type. It's like the excitement of like meeting somebody new and like, oh, I wonder what theirs is going to be like. It's not like it better look like this.
Okay, so tell me, and of course you can push back or be like, I don't share that information, but you slept with women before, Vanessa? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm sorry if this was new information to you. And did you ever come across a woman's vulva? I know a lot of people think it's the vagina. So the vulva is the everything outside, and the whole is the
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever come across one and you're like, oh, I like the other one better, or You never seen somebody's like labia and they're like too long, or you think something looks
I love the
weird?
face that he gets when he gets these questions. He's just like,
you got to be honest here.
My brain, and I can't speak for all men, but I think that a lot of men would tell you this whole like comparison thing, because I think that women do this. When women look at other women, from when I talk to other women, they do this thing of kind of sizing everybody up. And it's like,
we compare our bodies to other women's bodies.
What do my breasts look like compared to hers, or my legs versus hers?
Oh, my friend's vagina or vulva looks like it's 12. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, men must love you like you have like a porn star, like a vulva. It looks like there's... And I mean, mine always seemed kind of normal, but I hadn't seen a lot. And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it's not. I don't know. Now I need to do some research. Who knows?
Yeah, but so I think women really size each other up and compare. And I haven't had this experience. I don't think most men have this experience of like, you're with somebody new and you're thinking, oh, okay, her breasts compared to these 5 other women's breasts, or like, I've never thought, oh, well, if I could pick that one and compare it, combine
mix
it,
and match.
Yeah, it's like no, like I'm looking at the person that's in front of me. I think ultimately, like men are, there is that stereotype, and in many ways is probably true. Like we're visual creatures. It's like I'm thinking about what I am seeing with my eyes in front of me. I am not thinking about, oh, let me think back to what was the best, like, I don't know, like the best labia that I've ever seen. And how does that compare to this? Like, honestly, it's been a long time, but even in the moment when I was single, I don't think I could have been like, oh yeah, I like, I could like identify the labia in the lineup of people that I've been with. Like, or do you think,
could you describe what an ideal vulva would look like for you?
Not really, no. Like a vulva.
Yeah. Okay. So how hard a man gets and is able to stay, does that depend on how sexually attracted he is to the woman?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't think, I think that, no, I think it has to do with how excited you are in that moment.
But also many other factors.
And then also
too.
A lot of other factors. What else is going on? Like, what is your mental state of mind? How like connected are you feeling? How tired or not tired are you? What? Then you can even, anxiety. Then you can even get into like hormone levels and stuff like that. But I think that it has much more to do with just like in that moment, how excited you are. Now, all those other factors can definitely impact that. Like, okay, well, if I'm super stressed about some family drama or something that's going on, it's going to be really hard for me to get super excited and turned on in a given moment. Like, it's going to take a lot more to set all that aside.
Yeah, when I was working with couples, like in a therapy setting, when I would deal with a couple who was, having some sort of performance issues, I'd ask the woman, like, what do you think was going on? And 100% of the time, it was always like, oh, I think he's not attracted to me. Something's wrong with me. I did something wrong. And when I would ask the men, it was literally every single other thing other than attractiveness. I never
Is it because they know they can't say that?
No, I would do sessions with them privately. And never once have I heard a man say, I was struggling with performance issues because I wasn't attracted to the person.
Okay.
But I think that another compounding factor is that most men know if I experience some kind of performance issue, she's going to feel bad. She's going to think that I'm not into her. And so then that can create a self-fulfilling prophecy really quickly where you're like, can't have a performance issue. Got to stay hard, got to stay hard, got to stay hard. And when you're telling yourself you have to do something, like your body is going to fight back and it's likely going to do the opposite thing. So if and especially then you've had that situation one time and you saw that she was kind of down and you're trying to tell her, look, it's not about you. But then, it doesn't seem like she believes you. The next time you have sex, you're thinking about that. You're like, oh God, I don't want this to happen again. I can't let this happen again. And then you're trying to control everything. Yeah. And when we try to control things tend to go off the rails.
We're all just in our own heads. And I know a lot of women too are like super self-conscious about how their vulva or vagina might smell too. Like douching and all the things to make, like,
Stop douching. Stop using soap on your vulva.
Really?
If there's one thing for women to walk away from this episode with. Yeah, like stop using soap on your vulva.
Okay, it's just going to mess it up.
Yeah, we don't need soap there. The vagina she's a self-cleaning oven. She takes care of herself. You don't need to use soap. Feminine care products, wipes, body deodorants, like none of that.
Even if they say pH balancing.
Even if they say pH balance, even if they say like, specially formulated, don't use anything. Literally just water.
Water, that's it?
Just water. When you use products, it can very easily disrupt your natural pH balance. And ironically, that leads to irritation and odor. It's just not
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, what about wetness? Like, is there such thing as getting too wet? Like, do men like a certain level of wetness when you're having sex?
Well, the most important thing to know about wetness is it's actually not an indicator of your arousal.
Oh.
You can be totally turned on and dry as desert. You can be very wet and not at all turned on. So it's not
anywhere in between.
It's not an indicator of how turned on you are. Just like it works the same way for men. Like sometimes they have boners at really inappropriate times. And you're like, what are you doing?
It's like, this is
definitely not turned on.
We're at a funeral, buddy. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So wetness is not an indicator of our arousal.
What's it an indicator of?
It can overlap a little bit with arousal, but sometimes it's just a normal, like, weird bodily process.
And do some people get way more wet than other people, like naturally?
Yeah.
And do you prefer a certain level of wetness?
I don't know, not really. I mean, like you can always
again.
You can always
slip and slide. Did you need some friction in there?
Yeah, you can always add some lube.
You can always add.
You can always add some lube, but I mean, some amount of friction is nice.
We very rarely
you
hear
can
from,
add too much lube for sure.
We very rarely hear from women who say like, I feel like I'm creating too much of my own natural wetness. And so what you can do is just have him pull out, use a little like washcloth or some Kleenex, wipe off a little bit.
I feel like
and go back into it.
I feel like I get really wet. And it's like almost like, I'm like, do you need less? I don't know.
In general,
I'm not a squirter, which I want to talk about too, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, in general, the wetter, the better. But in rare circumstances, we do hear from people who are like, it's just like the woman is saying, I feel so wet that I'm not really feeling anything. So,
I mean, I think that, the easy solution if he is feeling like it's too much would be, just pull out, wipe your penis off with Kleenex or a towel or something.
Yeah.
And then, then you're going back into the lubrication. So that will kind of balance things out.
Okay. And are all women capable of squirting?
Science does not have the answer to that question yet.
What the hell?
Likely.
What kind of studies are they doing over there?
Yeah, no one's funding research on this. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter which party is in charge. No one's been funding this research.
All right, well, we need to start. I need to spearhead this.
So I'm not a huge fan of the way that squirting has been talked about the last few years because I think it's become really performative.
Yeah.
So we're putting like pressure on women to do it because it looks visually interesting. So one of the challenges of a female orgasm is that you're not getting the same visual feedback that you do with like an erect ejaculating penis.
Right.
And so a lot of men, and because we've seen this so much in porn too, a lot of men are like, well, but I want to see the thing.
Right.
I want to see like the fireworks here. So we've started to put this pressure on squirting, and a lot of women are telling me like it just feels like I'm being asked to be like a circus performer.
Yeah, like what am I, Shamu over here?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of women who do squirt, a lot of them will say, it like feels okay, but it's not really that pleasurable. A lot of women say, I actually don't like it. It creates a mess.
Yeah.
I can't feel much because there's so much liquid.
Yeah, or it doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah,
and it's just like, it's annoying. It's getting in the way.
Yeah, the really important thing to know about squirting is that it's a separate process from orgasm. So you can squirt without orgasming.
I didn't know that.
You can orgasm without squirting.
I think most people squirt without orgasming.
Yeah.
And so that creates problems in and of itself because guys have it in their head that like, oh, this is the visual representation that I've done a good job.
Yeah.
And it's like, in reality, it's like you triggered something that she most likely, she might wish didn't happen because it's getting in the way of getting her to the point that she actually wants to get to.
It's like you asked her to pee on you and now you're like, okay, are you satisfied? It's like, no, not really. Okay, so I'm getting asked to wrap this up because we're going over, but I have so many questions about just random sex things. Okay, one more question. Let me think of just like a weird hot take. Queefing. Does queefing mean you have like a big vagina or that like the penis is too small or what is that about? And do all women queef?
Yes, all women queef.
We have a hot take. We have a hot take on queefing, which is that it's the man's fault.
I like that.
It is.
Yeah, like he's
pushing that
he's
air up in
pushing
there.
too much
Yeah.
air. in
Like,
there,
I'm sorry
or
you
not
have a
even-
pencil dick and you're just like, yeah, okay, all right.
It's not related to the size of the anatomy. It's just literally that something is pushing air up into the vagina and it's natural for it to like kind of squelch as it comes on out. So a lot of women feel so embarrassed about it. They feel like they have to apologize or, something horrible is wrong. But I think we should look at him and be like, excuse
Sorry.
you.
Yeah, well
has a
done, buddy.
woman ever queefed and you were like, oh my God, did she fart? Or did you know it was a queef?
Honestly, I mean, like now that because I understand what queefing is and that it's like my fault. Like honestly,
You've
I think
trained him
I would be more into it. Like, oh yeah, look what I did. I mean, as long as it's not causing any discomfort
Right.
to anybody. I think that as long as both partners are on the same page and understanding of like anatomically, this is what is happening. This is not a fart. Like
I think
this
there are
is
more
you
men
can
into
tell that it's
queefing
not a
than not into it.
I would hope men could tell it's not.
But I think the important thing is, for you, obviously it's your body like creating the noise, or it feels like it's coming out of you, even though it's really both of you, like 50-50 making it happen.
Right.
I think though that like it would be important to be like, if for you, you don't enjoy the experience of it, then it was like, okay, could you please not, he's probably pulling out too much.
Right.
To push air in, or it's like, oh, that's a sign that you're going too hard or something. So I think it's just important to talk about like, hey, are we both open to queefing? Like then game on. Like let's go. If not, like what adjustments?
Queefing.
Yeah, what
That's
adjustments?
great. Oh my God, how funny. Okay, well, we do have to wrap this up, and we did not even get to butt stuff, so you guys are going to have to come back. But thank you so much for talking with me. I had so much fun, and I feel like I learned some valuable lessons. I hope everybody out there did too. So
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, thank you.